Hello students, welcome to Drishti IAS. My name is Saloni Nandkyoliar, and in this session we are going to analyze the World Inequality Report of 2025. It is bringing to us some disheartening data in terms of India's inequality, and all this becomes very important for our examination. So the World Inequality Report is published by the World Inequality Lab. The World Inequality Lab publishes this report, and the 2026 edition is the third edition of this report. We had one in 2018, the second in 2022, and now we have the third in 2026. And what does this report do? So as the name highlights, it is the World Inequality Report. It talks about the inequality in the economies of the world. It talks about the concentration of income and wealth in the nations. So in this report also there was some disheartening data that came out, that India is among one of the most unequal countries in the world. It is one of those countries in the world which have a very high inequality, which means that there is a huge concentration, unequal concentration of wealth and income in India. So if I talk about the data over here, then the top 10% of earners, this is for income. We have the income data and then we have the wealth data. So the top 10% of earners in India, they take home 58% of the total national income. If India in totality earns 100 rupees, then 58 rupees go to the pocket of the top 10 earners only. And the bottom 50%, which is the majority of the population, this is earning only 15% of the income. So you see the disparity over here. The top 10% get 58% of the total income, and the bottom 50% have to survive in only 15% of the national income. So income concentration is very huge. It is there's a huge disparity in this thing. The top is getting a lot and the bottom is not getting that much. And if I talk about the wealth concentration, the assets that people hold in India, then the top 10% again own 65% of India's total wealth. And in top 10 also there is a disparity. So within there is a disparity in the bottom and the top, and in the top also there is unequal distribution, because the top 1% alone, if you see over here, they own around 40% of the wealth. Top 10 get 65%, and even out of that top 10, the top 1% are getting 40% of the wealth. So there is disparity in the different societies that we have in India, and the different groups, the classes that we have in India. Income is also very much concentrated in the hands of the top 10 population, and wealth is also concentrated in the hands of these top 10 population. And it becomes very important, understanding this data becomes very important for any country if we want to understand the economic growth of that country. Because if the majority of this population will have no money, then their spending automatically is going to be low. They don't have enough money. The spending is going to be low. And when the spending is going to be low, it means that the demand is also going to be low. The domestic demand is also going to be low. And in turn, this can lead to a sluggish economic growth. So it is very important in any economy of a country that the wealth, the income, it should not be concentrated just in the hands of a few people. It should be divided equally. It should be divided in a fairer manner, in a transparent manner, and then only we can guarantee, or we can at least start moving towards the economic growth of our country. So the data over here is definitely disheartening. And if we talk about the inequality over the years, because I told you that this is the third edition, so if you compare it with the previous edition also, in 2022, top 10% had 57% of the income and bottom 50% had 13%. Here also the disparity was high. Now what has happened? This has become 58. So there is a slight increase in the income of the top 10% and there is a slight increase in the income of the bottom 50 also, because this has also moved to 15%. But again, this data is not that significant. The rise is not that significant. This should have risen more. It shouldn't just have been from 13 to 15%. So the disparity still remains very high. So this is a challenge. And how do we exactly measure inequality? So you know that we measure inequality by the Gini coefficient. So if the Gini coefficient is 0, this means that this is a perfectly equal society. And if the Gini coefficient is 1, then it means this is a perfectly unequal society. I'm telling you this because we need to understand a comparison of this data among these different countries. So if I talk about the Scandinavian countries, then they're closer to this value. They're towards the perfectly equal economies, perfectly equal societies. And if I talk about India, we are somewhere in the middle. So we are moderately unequal. And if I talk about the sub-Saharan countries, then they are closer to this value, which means that they are highly unequal. So the situation for India is also not very good. The inequality is only rising, it is increasing. Inequality in income, inequality in wealth, it is increasing, and then it is going to be difficult for us to ensure our economic growth and economic development. And if I talk about some more figures, if we talk about the average income and wealth data, then over here also you will see that the per capita income is 6,224 euro for our population. And the bottom 50, if you see, they hold only 940 euros, and the top 1% is 1,40,649 euros. Again, there is a huge disparity over here in the average per capita income also. And if I talk about the wealth, then it is 28,141. This is the average wealth that we have for the entire population. Here also there is a disparity. Bottom have 1,800 and the top one has almost of average wealth. So again, there's a huge disparity in income, there's a huge disparity in wealth, in the per capita income also. And the female labor share, the female workforce share is also very low. As per this report, it is 15.7% only, which means only 15.7% of the women in Indian workforce, they're actually doing paid work. So this again is not a very good solution, not very good situation for India. We need to work on leveling up the inequality. We need to work towards deconcentration of the wealth and deconcentration of the income, and increasing the female workforce participation also, and engaging them in more paid activities. So what needs to be done? The way forward over here is to look at our progressive taxation, because the rich people are only getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So we need to rethink upon our progressive taxation system, so that the people who are rich, they start paying more taxes. Those taxes, that money can actually be used for public spending, in building more national assets, and finally we can work towards narrowing this gap of income divide, of wealth divide that we have in the nation, and bringing these people, the bottom 50 people, up into the hierarchy. Because if you see, these people, they are actually suffering because of a lot of things, the things that they've not even done. For example, they're also suffering with climate injustice. These people barely have the money, and they have hardly contributed to climate change. They have not contributed that much to climate change, but they're suffering the most because of climate change. And this becomes important for the global south countries. It becomes within the global south also, we see inequality even in our own societies. So we are kind of we are suffering from climate injustice also. We have not contributed as much to the carbon emissions, but we are suffering. We are going to suffer. The future generations are going to suffer, particularly for the poorer households, because they do not have enough resources, enough assets to take care of themselves or their future generations. So that is why this is something that India needs to take seriously, because we are amongst the worst or the most unequal nations in the world, and the inequality situation has not been improving for India over these years. So this is something that needs to be done. We need to revisit our progressive taxation, we need to improve our public spending, and we need to look for more targeted policies. In the short run, maybe we can look at some targeted cash transfers to the people, to the actual beneficiaries, so that the spending can be boosted up. And in the long run, we'll have to look for better sustainable options, better taxation options, better inheritance policies, so that all the assets and the wealth can be distributed in a fairer manner. So that was all for this video. We analyzed the data that has been provided to us in the World Inequality Report of 2025, and the situation for India is not very motivating at the moment. There are certain things that the government will need to do. It will have to come up with better targeted policies, better employment policies, employment generation policies also, and boost the spending, boost the income, boost the wealth, and reduce the divide that we have in the country at the moment. So that was all for this video. Now let us practice a question for prelims. With reference to income and wealth distribution in India as highlighted by the World Inequality Report 2026, consider the following statements. 1. India is ranked among the most unequal large economies in the world. 2. The top 1% in India owns a larger share of national wealth than the bottom 50%. 3. The report is published by the World Bank. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 1 and 2 only, B. 2 and 3 only, C. 1 and 3 only, or D. 1, 2 and 3. Please attempt this question and provide your answers in the comment section. Thank you for watching.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.